Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
and I am Tom.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk about A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, the whole season one. It's been a little bit. Tom and I both watched, and I want to emphasize this, the whole season one, and we are going to talk about the whole season one. So there's 6 episodes. They're like 30 minutes apiece. Go knock them out because we are going to talk about spoilers and what happened throughout the whole series. Tom, welcome back to Mike. And hey, welcome back from sobriety? No, to sobriety? I don't know. We took some time off for Tom. I don't want to go into it. Obviously, don't want to reveal too much, but personal reasons. And so he's back on the wagon with us, and we are here to talk about Game of Thrones. Tom, before I ask you about this series specifically, what I wanted to get your temperature on is, are you like a Game of Thrones head? Like, I know you watched the originals, but how deep did you go into it? Talk to me about books. Give me your Game of Thrones history. I'm the maester. I'm learning your history. Where's your Game of Thrones head at, Tom?
Excellent. Yeah, I was a huge fan of the first season of the show. I thought it was just so incredibly well done. It was
Of the
like
original
peak,
Game of Thrones. The first
original
season?
Game of Thrones.
Okay,
Yes,
got it.
Game of Thrones season one. Like, to me, it's like peak prestige HBO drama, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever. Like,
Sure.
fantastic show. I was so enthralled by the first season that I ended up picking the books up and reading all of them. So
Which is a huge deal because Tom's not a reader. This is a huge
Exactly.
deal.
It was a very big deal. Admittedly, I read or I heard that the first season of Game of Thrones was very much like the first book, so I just went right to the second book. Skipped the first book. I went back and read the first book, but
Oh, did you really?
1,000%, yes.
I didn't realize that.
1,000%.
You skipped the first book, went to the second because you're like, oh, I've seen it on TV. Oh, that's
Exactly.
incredible, Tom. Oh, that's the first line of your obit, friend. I
But
can't
listen,
wait to read. Yeah, that's great.
Like you said, these books are an undertaking, and I am not a big reader. I definitely read a lot more now than I probably did when I first started reading these books, so I didn't know what the commitment was, and I felt like if I started reading material that I already have watched on screen, I would be bored with it and I wouldn't enjoy it. But anyways, so that's to say I've read all the books. I really wish there were more books, and I wish they finished the entire series like the
Sure.
show did, and then we're not going to go into the probably shenanigans that all happen in the final seasons of Game of Thrones. But I got really big in the lore. Like, I love the books. I would listen to deep dive podcasts, going into each episode and talking about the lore of the houses and how it all kind of fit in and what are the different theory crafting out there. Like, it was a really fun show to dive into, but it's just massive. Like,
Right.
they've got these spin-offs. Like, I think we even got it like a wedding gift from somebody. Not the whole Song of Fire and Ice, but like the big coffee table sized book that's supposed to tell you about like all the history of the Targaryens and where they kind of came from. So I have that. I have not read through all of that because it reads very, very dry. And it's like you are a maester reading a novel about this fake, weird universe.
A history book, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't get all into that. But I watched the other spin-off. I watched The House of the Dragon. Not nearly as enjoyable as for me as I felt like the Game of Thrones series was. You know, I like the dragons. I like the battles. It's still made really well, but I don't think the stories are nearly as compelling as the Game of Thrones tale was. But I really liked this series based off of George R. R. Martin's kind of novellas of Dunk and Egg, and kind of following their little journey, because it's just a much smaller scaled little mini adventure that these two characters are going on that have nothing to do with the overall. I mean, they get into a little bit of the politics of it, but at the end of the day, like, it's just a knight trying to survive in this really massive, amazing universe that George R. R. Martin's built. So I had a real fun time with it. So that was a very long-winded answer to show my background for Game of Thrones. But how about yourself?
Yeah, I like them. Anyways, so no. I read the books in high school because my older brother always knew like what fantasy or sci-fi books were going to be big. I don't know how. I mean, I don't even know if the internet was all that big, but somehow it got passed to him. Game of Thrones got passed to me. I remember at one point my dad picked him one up and was like, "Hey, these are really vulgar." And I was like, oh, you haven't even found the good parts in the book, because if you did, you 100% would not let us read those books. But we read them. The original HBO series I watched, but I remember coming in and out of it because I had a lot going on in my life where I wasn't necessarily available during those years. But like So I remember Tara and I think we didn't watch it like every Sunday. It was like maybe we watched the first season, but then we were getting like DVDs from Blockbuster and Netflix to try and catch up. So, obviously, like Prestige Sunday night, they were great. We tried House of the Dragon. Too weird. Too like brother sister. Just I don't know. We couldn't do it, so we bounced on that one. To your point, we hopped on this one. They're 30-minute episodes. You don't need to know the lore in order to know A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. You can take it as like a tight 30-minute adventure show about a knight and his squire. But I do like that there's enough in there for you nerds that literally made coasters for your coffee table out of the houses of Game of Thrones.
Hand-painted,
I'm remembering Tom made hand-painted. I can't believe I didn't bring this up when you were talking, but Tom made hand-painted coasters for their place of the houses, and they still exist, I believe. They still look good, right? You glazed them and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, that's what his cup of milk now sits on, because obviously he's transitioned to a lighter beverage.
Yeah, my milk of the poppy.
The milk of the poppy. But no, I really enjoyed this show. I thought it was well done. You and I are big proponents of like a tight 30-minute show. I will say, though, and this is very hypocritical, is I was like, oh, if we potted on this episode to episode, would a 30-minute episode be enough? And I would struggle to say yes. And then also, I was a little bit aggravated that I had to wait week to week for 30 minutes of TV because it's not enough to like take up an evening because you have to like find something else on either end to watch. Because it's weird to be like, I'm going to watch 30 minutes of TV and then go read, I guess. I don't know. What do people do other than watch TV, Tom? But no, I definitely enjoyed this. And we can dive into even deeper what we enjoyed about it. But like, there is something about the Game of Thrones as a whole, a lot of complex characters, a lot of like terrible, evil people doing evil things. And I do feel like Game of Thrones was one of those shows where it was like, hey, you want to know the depravity of human nature? Well, we're going to show it to you. And with a show like this, it's almost like, hey, if the main character is a good man trying to do good things in like a bad place, guess what? That can be pretty compelling in terms of just how it plays out. And then having a sidekick where, I mean, we'll get into it, but like the soul of Egg is kind of being like, which way is he going to go? And so I very much enjoyed this show. Would you have appreciated more than 6 episodes, or do you think 6 episodes was the right amount?
No, I love the 6-episode arc, and I think the reason I love it is because like they've already gotten renewed for season 2. They are actively filming season 2, and I think their goal is to do at least 4 or 5 of these things and just pump them out every year. Because I think there's something to be said about a show that can have that sort of cadence where it's coming out, it's staying in the zeitgeist, as opposed to a lot of these newer shows that the production value is so massive they take 3 to 4 years to come out between seasons. So I love the pacing and everything for this show. I'm sure some people came into it knowing that this is a Game of Thrones spinoff and wanted this to be more dragons. They wanted it to be longer epics, but I think this is the perfect kind of style. I mean, they're novellas, right? They're not these massive novels that George R. R. Martin wrote for all the main kind of series of books in the Song of Ice and Fire. So like to me, it almost reads like an underdog sports movie kind of thing, right?
Sure.
Like where he's got to overcome these trials and tribulations. And then also reminds me of like The Last of Us, right? Like the idea of somebody not necessarily wanting like this younger person in their life, and they obviously clash, but it is like a buddy cop kind of thing that's just very entertaining to watch. And I thought it was so incredibly well done.
Sure. The Last of Us, or the one where Boba Fett has like Baby Yoda and they're going around.
Mandalorian and Grogu?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Whatever I said. Yeah, there's always something compelling. And the conversations in these episodes of like Dunk being like what a knight means, like to defend the weak, to defend the innocent amongst all of these highborn where it's a title and it doesn't matter for their like day-to-day choices like it does to Dunk, I thought was very compelling television. What I would recommend people do is like watch the show and then read the novellas, or I don't know that I would recommend reading the novellas before. I made the mistake of episode 4, like finishing that and going to my bookshelf and pulling it off and starting to read it. And I got to be honest, it may have ruined the last like 2 episodes for me because I had not remembered what happened. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to reread it like as a companion piece. And I made that mistake. So I would do them not at the same time. I would either read and watch or watch and read.
I think I did read this too, but yeah, it had been a long time because it was essentially probably, I don't know chronology-wise when it came out in terms of most recent book of Dance of Dragons, if it was before that or after that. But I didn't remember much of it. But from what I read on the internet, it's pretty faithful, right? Like this season is pretty close to the book.
Yeah, and I should mention, just so everyone knows I'm an intellectual, Tom, I read it a long time ago. I reread it while watching the show, which was a mistake because, Tom, very smart guy. A lot of people say I'm smart. I read a lot of big
Smartest
books.
people are saying it.
A lot of big books. So I
But
definitely...
the book is The Hedge Knight. That is the name of this is based.
And
this season
honestly,
is based off of.
as you read it, you're like, did the people that wrote the screenplay even do anything? Because it's almost word for word dialogue. There are cuts in the book that happen in the show. Like some of those like hard cuts where it goes from something happening to almost like a surprise. It's in the book. Now, there's definitely some gross stuff that's in the show that's not in the novella, which I could probably do without, but it is what it is. We can talk about that later. But I'm staring at the book right now. It's still got the 30% off Target sticker on it. So that'll let you know the history. Let's talk characters, Tom. Did you, I guess, I felt like other than one actor in this show, and no, 2, I didn't really have any prior relationship with like Dunk and Egg in terms of who they are as actors, and then other than the novellas, who they are as characters. Did you recognize either of those guys or have any like relationship to those actors?
No, definitely not our main cast. I feel like some of I think Lionel Baratheon and maybe some of the Targaryens kind of seemed familiar. They're like, oh, it's that guy from that other thing, but I couldn't really place it. But yeah, both, I think, Dunk was played by Peter Claffey, and then Egg by Dexter Soul Ansel. Like, I mean, they are the heart and soul of this show, right? Like, if their dynamic doesn't work, this show doesn't work. I think in the same way it does. And I think they both just knocked it out of the park and did a fantastic job. Yeah,
I think that kid role of Egg that can go sideways in so many ways.
So
like
true.
That kid can be annoying, but that actor plays that role extremely well. Like there's something about, and once again, we're spoiling things here, like where Egg comes from and him slumming it, and then at certain points him not telling the truth and Dunk constantly threatening to cloud him in the ear. Like what Tom and I have always been pro child abuse. I think we've been on the record. We're all for child abuse. In this world it's a little bit different, but I feel like the strongest, well, not the strongest, but Egg and that actor being that young and making that work was like a huge win for the show because once again, that can just be like an annoying kid that you're like, do I want Egg to live? I don't know that I want Egg to live because Egg is annoying, but Egg was not annoying. Egg was charming.
Well, because he's fun. Like he was just inquisitive. Like he wanted to learn more from Dunk and like understand his experiences, because all the experiences that he has had to date has been, like a little Prince Lord or whatever. So like, it's just lived a very cushioned life. So I love the way he kind of played it, and I love how they would jab each other back and forth. He's like, well, I'm going to stick the dogs on you. You don't have any dogs. Just all that back and forth was great.
Yep. No, I enjoyed all of it. Their conversations underneath the tree, and like Egg being like, I was going to put up your pavilion, but I couldn't find one. And Dunk having to be like, my tree is my pavilion. I don't know. It was just very charming. But listen, the charming of it all, Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm. I want to talk about this guy. So Daniel Ings is the guy with the antlers that just like a huge point of the show. He's not big in the book, but when you have Daniel Ings, the actor, doing Daniel Ings in a Game of Thrones, like he was in the previews and I was like, oh, I'm in. I love this guy. So I don't know if you have any relationship to him from past shows, but he was in Guy Ritchie's, Netflix did a version of The Gentleman for Netflix. And he is like the weird brother, and he plays a incredible role in that. And then the first time I experienced him in we saw it on Netflix, but it was a show called Lovesick, which was quite good. And he just plays eccentric and like wild-eyed and crazy so well. And I loved that he played that in this, but also there were moments of like sincerity and him being like, you know, a big brother or a sponsor for Dunk. So I really enjoyed. I don't even know if I'm saying his last name right, but I'm assuming his full name is Danieling, which is like a verb, but then they separated it into Daniel Ings. But I really enjoyed Lionel Baratheon.
Oh yeah, Danielings is incredible. Like Lionel Baratheon to me was definitely a standout. Obviously, Duncan need to carry the story, but you need like these little sidekick kind of characters. And he played the part so incredibly well. Like the dance sequence they had was so good. The profile of these antlers that he's wearing is just so iconic. And I think you've seen it in like artwork of the show. So to see it kind of come to life in the in the show, see it come to life is just so cool. And I loved him as a character.
Sure. I mean, even in the finale when Dunk is suffering and was just told that he's dying. And Lionel Baratheon's like, it's fine, you're fine. He's a terrible maester. Like, get out of here. And then he like he goes from silly to very quickly being like, you know, I know that you're honoring Baelor, but Baelor risked nothing. You know, he went into that fight knowing he was fighting Kingsguard that couldn't hurt him. And he's got a great line. He goes, the gods hate a fraud, which was just such a well-written line. So yeah, he gets a lot to do in this for someone who's like barely in the novella at all. So I appreciate what they did there.
Let me ask you this too, just so you brought up the concept of a fraud, and I think you had mentioned it earlier of like Dunk being this knight, and I feel like even in this conversation at the end of the season where he kind of says the gods don't like a fraud, like what is your take on Dunk actually being a knight? Because it seems like they had these flashbacks where was it Alistair? What was the name of his I won't call him Pennywise.
Arlen of Pennytree.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he truly actually knighted him before his passing. So I think a part of this is like Dunk feeling a little bit like a fraud as well, because he's kind of playing it off like a knight. But I think the greater argument is less so like you don't need to be actually knighted in this world. It's like the attributes you have as a person and standing up for the little guy and doing what's right. Like that's what truly makes you a knight. So he might feel like a fraud, but I don't think he is at all.
Oh, I would think that that's the whole premise of these stories, is that he's more of a knight than any of them, even though it is well established, not maybe in the first novella, but throughout it, that, he was never knighted. And even there's like a dream sequence where he asks Sir Arlen of Pennytree, why didn't you knight me? And so the importance of your actions meaning more than your titles. And it was even interesting where Raymond Fossilway is like, knight me. Another knight can make a knight right before the battle. And Dunk hesitates. And the way you could read that, if you didn't know, is that he's like nervous. But when you go deeper, it's like, well, does that make Raymond a fraud if Dunk was never knighted? And so Dunk like stalls until Lionel comes in and he's like, all right, I'll do it. And then you have that knighting scene that's done so well. I want to talk two more characters and then get into some favorite moments, Tom. And the main one I want to talk about is Aerion Targaryen, because the actor has a relationship to our show. Did you recognize? And Aerion's the one that challenges Dunk and like brings the grievance to the court. Did you recognize that actor, Finn Bennett?
I don't think I did, but I'm going to be upset if we've potted on this gentleman.
He is from True Detective Night Country. He is the son. He's like the other detective the other police officer that's son to John Hawkes in Night Detective. Completely different characters. Like in that one, he's like a good cop trying to do real things. In this one, he's like a snotty Targaryen who just wants what his and is trying to beat up a puppeteer, trying to break the hand of a puppeteer. That's Finn Bennett. He does an incredible job as a heel in this.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, because polar opposite characters. So, guy showing his range. Well done.
And then the last thing I mentioned him before, but Raymond Fossilway, who's like the squire to his cousin and then comes to Dunk's aid. I don't know that actor. I thought he did a great job. And they brought that character to life from the books quite well, where it's like they didn't know each other. All of a sudden they're fast friends and they go through something traumatic together. And he's not in the other novellas, which I find a little bit sad because I would like I'll be interested to know what they do, whether or not they stay true to the next ones or whether or not they bring some of these casts back for other moments. So the green apple, we hope he comes back.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
And that moment where he's knighted, I think I talked about it before, one of the moments that I really enjoyed in the show. And so I wanted to just talk, like, what stuck with you, Tom, in terms of, like, throughout the show. Well, first off, like, did you have a favorite episode, or does it all kind of just flow together? Did you have one that you came out of that you felt like was stronger than the other 5?
I felt like my favorite was probably 4, like the lead up to this big battle, the Trial of the Seven, right? Yeah, because it just did such a great job of setting up the stakes, because this has always been like, oh, cool, he's a new knight and he's going to go in this tournament and we're going to get some cool action. But like the stakes just get ratcheted up when, you know, he ends up, you know, beating on the prince-to-be and having to, like, defend for himself. And then all these guys that kind of come to his aid. And, you know, some of it is coming to his aid because, you know, they want to help him as a person. But the vast majority is people doing this based off of, like, either their valor as wannabe knights or just want to be told in these stories of going against it. But then, like, yeah, that final Targaryen, I can't remember the main guy's name, that ultimately kind of comes into his aid, where, again...
Baylor.
Baylor.
Baylor Breakspear, Tom. We should have said at the top, if you're here for lore and names and knowing who's who and what their sigils are, we're not your pod. But, you know, we're doing our best. We're casual fans in the stands of Attorney. I will say the show is shot in such a way, and it was probably a budgeting thing. A lot of the action, I was like, wait, who's who? It's just like dark, muddy, and things are moving real fast, which is probably how these tourneys were shot. But I do like, they're like, all games are going to be night games. All these tourneys, Thursday night games. Oh, by the way, electricity doesn't exist, so you're going to have to squint pretty hard to figure out who's alive and who's dead. But no, I think you're completely right. Episode 4, I felt like was the strongest. I think I even texted you after 4 was done. I was so pumped. I was like, I can't wait for 5. And 5 was good, but the lead up to the action was so much better than the action. And sometimes you come to these shows, I don't know, in my, like, dumb brain, I come to these shows for, like, the swords and the shields and the horses and the action. But what I find myself a lot of times walking away from them is that episode 4 where all the guys show up and they're like, hey, we're for you, Dunk. And, like, Lionel's like, this is the first, like, combat of 7 in 100 years. I'm not going to not, like, join. And so it's very fun. All leading up to Balin Breakspear being like, I'll fight on Dunk's behalf, which is just an incredible moment. I do appreciate they gave Peter Claffey his moment, his, like, gladiator moment to, like, get in front of the stands and plead his case, and I thought he did a really nice job. I do wonder if this role just goes to the tallest actor, which is not, like, Tom Cruise is not playing this. Tom Cruise is like 5'6", you know? So I wonder, as, like, a tall actor, if that's limiting, or whether or not they're like, hey, Game of Thrones is doing a series about a really tall knight, and all the tall actors are like, I'm in. I'm Irish or British, I'm in. Like, bring it to me. So
yeah, it definitely limits it a bit, but I feel like they might have done some like forced perspective kind of character things, or like not necessarily having other characters
he's
standing
not
on boxes.
7 feet tall, right?
Yeah.
He'd be playing basketball for a Euro team if that was the case. But he is, I think he's like 6'5" in real life, so he's definitely not a short dude. Now, once again, I thought my favorite part was going to be the action, and then the other thing I would be remiss not to mention is, and we've talked about it a little bit, but the back and forth between Dunk and Egg, the moments of them like growing close when they're laying under the tree, and because they don't have a pavilion, they see the shooting star, and that means luck, and so Dunk is like asking. I think there is something about Dunk. I won't say he's dumb, but he's simple. And so asking a child about like knowledge that this child who was raised in castles clearly has, I think is a fun dynamic of like Dunk at certain points is like, hey, know your place. And then other times is like Egg knows the sigils. He knows the alliances. He knows all these things. And so coming to him, and I like the dynamic of that friendship, which comes out in the books and I felt like came out very sweetly in the show.
Well, they had that moment where they're sitting there talking, and Egg is like saying like how people used to tease him or whatever, and then Dunk comes in. It's like, yeah, people used to call me stupid, and then doesn't add anything else to it.
Long pause, and Egg's finally like, oh, I thought you were gonna like encourage me in some way, and Dunk's like, no, like I can't.
It's none of your business.
I can't do anything about it.
Such good back and forth.
I thought was great. I do want to say, I don't know why this caught me. But it's like Stefan Fosselway is the evil older cousin. When he tells Dunk, he's like, I'm your man. I will gather friends. We will fight on your side. I was like, I love it. I love it. They like painted him as this terrible character, but he's truly a knight. He's going to come to Dunk's aid. And then when he turns at the end of the episode, I was like, I don't know why. I don't think I had picked the book up at that moment. But when that happened, I was like, oh, that's brutal. So I appreciate a small twist inside of an episode that definitely caught me off guard. Because I bought him when he was like, Dunk, like, we'll do this together. Forget the dragons. Like, I'm on your team. And so that brings and we're going to touch on it, the biggest twist of the show. You knew the twist, right? Because you'd mentioned it been a long time since you read the novella, but the big twist about Egg, did you know that going in? Did your spouse, who I'm assuming you watched this with, know that going in? Was there any type of surprise?
I definitely remember that going in. I remember that being kind of the big part of the novella. I also remember kind of lead up to this show thinking about all the references that they had in the original Game of Thrones, talking about both Dunk and Egg, because I think there are a handful of them. I won't get through them just because some of them might be a little bit spoilery. But yeah, so I knew that was, and even like my wife, who has no affiliation, she didn't read the books or anything, I kind of asked her when they had that twist, it was at the end of episode 3, I think, like wondering if that was a surprise to her, and she's like, oh no, like the second they were looking for a kid, I knew that kid was Egg.
Right. I like that you said she had no affiliation, as if you were going to be like, she is a Targaryen herself and is well familiar with the lore. No,
silver white hair.
Yeah, well, that does make sense. That does make sense. So it's like 4 was the lead up, 5 was the action. You have like the terrible moment with Baelor and what happens to him, and then like 6 is a finale. I don't know. I still thought it was like, even though it was a letdown from the action, and it was kind of like a, hey, let's tie all this up in a bow and like move
aftermath.
on to the next season. I thought they did it really well, and I felt like there were stronger episodes. I will say that my one criticism, Tom, and this is a small criticism, is going into the flashback in the middle of the battle, I felt was like a real kick in the kneecap. Like if you're sprinting down a road and you're like, you got a runner's high, that flashback was someone, I don't know, hiring someone with a lead pipe to hit you in the kneecap so that you couldn't skate anymore. Sorry, the Winter Olympics are on, so I've got Nancy Kerrigan on the brain, obviously.
Timely reference.
But like, I just...
No, I had the
really
same
Tanya
feeling.
Harding thing, I guess is what I'm saying, Tom.
I had the same feeling because, again, how well they ended episode 4 and you knew we're getting into this battle. And they even shot it where, like, super cool camera angle that essentially like goes through Dunk's head, and then it goes into first person mode, and then you see like just the slits of his helmet and him go barreling down on the other Targaryen dude. Like, it was epic and brilliant. So then they cut to Flea Bottom and then show this flashback, which I think was a really lovely flashback and kind of showed like who he was as a kid and how he's always kind of been like trying to do the right thing or whatever and make a better life for himself. It was cool, but yeah, it did take me out of that action. And when they got back to the action, again, really cool, brutal, and very different. And then I think a lot of these kind of medieval types of battles have ever been shot. So I thought it was really well done. But yeah, it definitely took me out a bit. And I would have maybe liked the order to be a little bit different.
I was a little bit terrified they were going to carry that flashback to the end of that episode and then roll into the end of the battle and like the kind of mop up for the finale. So it was probably not as long as I remember it, but I was like, I know where he's from. I don't need this backstory in such a way. But the other thing I wanted to just touch on is some of the things they kind of changed a little bit. And I bring it up just because we will watch the next season. I think you and I are aligned on that. But like in the books, it's pretty clear that Egg gets permission to go with Dunk on like adventures. And I love this part because the argument here between Dunk and Egg's dad is like, hey, your other sons who have kind of soured, they were raised the way you want to raise them, like in a royal house. Like, let him sleep under the stars, let him like live among the hedges with a hedge knight, and let's see how he turns out. I love that, and I believe in the books it's kind of a clear decision from Egg's dad of like, yes, I see the benefit of that. And in this, it just turns out Egg's a liar, and so it really feels like Dunk gets ridden down in the next day by like they think he's just stolen Egg. So I thought that was a little interesting in terms of how they changed that from the books.
Well, and the way they present it here, too, because he's got, what, 3 or 4 sons, and, like, one's, like, a drunkard, one is the one that obviously started off this whole trial of the 7.
And then the other one is in the like Citadel, or, he's been sent to be a maester. I know it's not called the Citadel, but whatever.
Yeah, but, like, the idea of, like, Egg kind of being his last son, and he kind of calls that out as, like, it's his last chance to be able to prep somebody for the throne or, you know, to be a good prince for the people or the realm. It makes sense as to why he maybe wouldn't want to get rid of his son. So the way they played it in the series is having this like tag at the end of the credits that I don't know if it's the end of the credits or like they go black for a little bit, but you can definitely miss it if you just turn it off.
Right.
But I love that little sequence.
I like the idea as a parent of when you have multiple children voicing that you only have one child. I like to do this with my kids. I like to be like, but he's my only child. And the other kid goes, wait, no, you have more than one. And I like to do it so they fight amongst each other. It builds character, Tom, is what I've been told. And I read it in the parenting books.
Medieval parenting books.
Yeah, the medieval parenting books. The other thing you touched on a little bit, and I guess I'm curious your perspective as well, is it's hinted at, and maybe a little bit heavier in terms of whether or not Dunk is like a sworn knight. And once again, like taking an oath, being touched on the shoulder, does that matter? I don't know. Legolas in Kingdom of Heaven makes a big deal that being a knight does matter. Watch the director's cut. But it's interesting in this, they like clearly state it. And I think sometimes I feel like I like shows that don't like hit us over the head with facts. I think this show did it a couple of times. I wonder if they would have just let it be like kind of questionable whether or not that's a better. Once again, I don't think it's critical. I enjoyed the show, but I wonder if they just let that be ambiguous, whether or not that's a better take.
I kind of like that was the way it was played because I don't think it was too heavy-handed. Like I don't think if you were paying enough attention, you may not have like got the idea of him. Sure, if you were on your phone, you probably missed it.
That's fair. Yeah. That's a good point, Tom.
But yeah, like and to me, like the final shot of the season of them like all riding on their horses, like going out to pasture, and then you actually have the Penny Tree dude like with them, Mark Arlen. And then he kind of like veers off, and even Dunk almost kind of gives him a look. Like I love how poetic and brilliant that is, where it's like his journey's over, and now these two is essentially just beginning. It's a brilliantly played ending sequence.
Sure. No, I agree. My final thought, and I mentioned this earlier, but I want to make sure. there is some over-the-top grossness in the show that I don't think is necessary. It's always a little bit jarring, and I mean, that's kind of in line with Game of Thrones originally. They were doing things that you would talk about the next day, like, hey, did you see? And so I don't know. There were certain things of this show, like even within like the first 2 minutes.
Let's just say there was an explosive moment in the beginning.
Man. I don't need it.
But the way they set it up was just so great, where you like, it starts doing the intro for the Game of Thrones theme, and you think they're gonna go into like this classic, brilliant, like Emmy Award winning opening credit sequence, and it's something else.
Yes,
and it really set the humor and like craziness of the show, I think, very well out the gates.
Didn't need it. There were a couple other things I didn't need. Anyways, Tom, I want to, like, as we close this up, I want to talk shield sigils. So at one point, we find out that Dunk needs to get a new one because he's been using Arlen of Penny Trees, and he's not allowed to because he's not a direct descendant. So he has this beautiful moment where he kind of makes one up on the spot. I would argue maybe think of it before you go to the person that's going to paint it, Tansel the Tall, who I thought did a great job in the show. I don't believe we've talked about her enough. But the sigil, Tom, of your house that you would choose, I'm very interested, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm very interested to know what you would go into the puppeteer's tent and ask them to paint on your shield.
I feel like
I have a guess
shield...
for you. I have a guess.
Go ahead, please. I would love to hear your
Well,
guess.
I think it's just the Chelsea sigil, but maybe you change the colors. The Chelsea Football Club, I believe. Or the Team Binge logo that you yourself designed. Those might be the two things that you would put on yours. Those would be my guesses.
I could listen. I'm not against some
Sir
sort
Tom,
of
Sir Tom, the kind of tall, as we would call you.
The average height. I feel like I would go. I like that angle. I could probably figure out something to do with that. I was thinking more maybe like a hexagon shield with like 2 wheat and 3 ore on it.
Oh gosh,
something in line with like Catan and being able to build cities, something like that.
So much. Someone would walk by, they'd be like from the house sheep, and they'd be like, "Hey, you want to trade shields? I don't know. Give me 2 of yours." God, Catan. Ooh, I spit on your shield, sir. I spit on it.
How about you? What's your? I'm sure you've thought about this.
I've given this a lot of thought, Tom. What is the lowercase t that churches have on them? What is that? What is that called?
Crisscross?
No, you're supposed to say a cross, and I'm supposed to say, no, they don't have it across from the church. They typically have it on top of the church. It's a little Arrested Development joke for you. Across from where? Yeah, mine would be like a cross, but in Latin it'd be like, only if you're cool with it. Like, you don't, I'm not trying to push this on you, that sort of thing. However that says that in Latin, that's what I do. It's my thing, but silently? It doesn't have to be yours. Oh yeah, suffer silently would be. The amount of times I tell that to my children, it's probably unhealthy, Tom. Anyways, I want to say one last thing, and that's about like fantasy shows in general, which we've done occasionally, but maybe it hasn't been our focus. But I always enjoy these shows. I enjoy these shows when they try and I think if you boiled it down, this show itself is, once again, it's a good knight trying to do good things for the people that can't defend themselves. And so I will always enjoy that theme. It's like taking the Arthurian tales and any of those about good people trying to do good things, and I think those tales are important, and I very much enjoy this show for doing that, and that's why the gross out humor I could do without. I wish it would just, but I guess it's a mix. You take the good with the bad.
Exactly. Take the wins where you can get them.
Right. But I think we'll come back for season 2 and maybe do it episode at a time or a couple episodes at a time. It's tough to talk about 30 minutes. Could we stretch a 30-minute show into a 3-hour podcast, Tom? Probably.
I think we did right here. Granted, we did the whole season, but...
All right. Well, any final words on the show we're talking about, which is they changed the title on me, so I got a little bit confused. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, or 9, depending on how you count.
Yeah, I think there was actually, I read like an article talking about George R. R. Martin did want to call it like Duncan Egg because then it felt too much like a sitcom,
Sure.
which I think is fair.
That's fair.
But yeah, I think I'm looking forward to season 2. I don't know how many novellas there are, 3 or 4. I think the next one's called The Sworn Sword. So just watching these two characters go on their next adventure, like I'm here for it. I'm with you. I don't think like maybe setting up these characters was important to follow this first book, but if they want to do a bunch of these and have them do other material that's outside of the original novels, like it's not like the Game of Thrones series where you really needed that source material. I think there's plenty of stuff that you can do with these awesome characters that I'm here for it. And I'm very much open to having this be a full Team Binge pod as opposed to just a single one-off.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be back for it. For those of you that are listening, we appreciate you. You can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. If this is your first exposure to us and you want to tell us how wrong we got a lot of Game of Thrones, like titles and names, you can direct those emails to Tom. Just put in the subject line, Tom, I have a word, something like that. And then let us know what your sigil would be. Tom, there's other things that we typically talk about. It's been so long, I don't remember how to close this out.
You're good, man. Follow us on the socials at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, all the fun ones. Again, yeah, let us know what you think about this. If you enjoyed our shenanigans, go check out our back catalog. I think we did choose our next full show to pod on, which will be The Rooster.
Bill Lawrence.
Based off of, creator Bill Lawrence, who did Ted Lasso and Shrinking, and starting the one and only Steve Carell. So very excited to be able to kind of come back and do kind of a full pod on that. So definitely please come back and join us for that show.
Yeah, and if for some reason that pod doesn't show up, it means we watched the first episode and we're like, nope. So also I want to point out that Shoresy season 5 came out, and that show... a lot of parallels, The Night of the Seven Kingdoms and Shoresy. Just a good dude trying to do good things for people. And then a lot of vulgar stuff that I could do without. But I still love the show. All right. For Team Binge, I have been Julian.
And Julian, I have been Tom. Till next week, everybody.